is naturally sort of boomy, I think. And because of that, it's difficult for me to control the breath. You have to keep it, I guess attenuated. That's not really the right word. To restrict the airflow, I guess is really what I'm isn't there easy for me to do in the sense that I don't have to do any rehearsing. They don't really require any planning. I mean, other than me setting aside and prioritizing the time. I mean, the technological setup is fairly minimal. I mean, the editing is a different thing, and then maybe if I have to do different takes depending on, you know, well, noises and things bleeding into mics. I mean, that's really kind of one of the, once I start making recordings, that's the thing that makes me go, ah. And, you know, so there's a lot of things that I have recorded, but I have abandoned because the noises that leak in just frustrate me. So it's like, heck, I'm not going to do that. So I'm trying to maybe readjust my expectations about what's acceptable or not. Because truth be told, when I watch other ASM artists, there are plenty of times where noises leak into mics and it doesn't really bother me that much. So anyway, we'll see. You know, I mean, my main thing is I want to start putting out more material. And I wanted to do something other than gameplay. I do have a couple of things in the works. I guess just as a way of tease, I am in the process of trying to read some short stories. But I'm trying to read them well, and it's taking me a while. And I'm also trying to come up with some interesting visuals to go with the reading of the story. So anyway, it's taking me some time to work out how it's going to happen, and coming up with a good workflow for it as well. See there, hint, hint, workflow. That implies more than one video. Yeah, so there is that. I'm also, when I first came to YouTube, I made a channel. It's just my name, William Poshman, and there's no videos there. Well, actually, by the time this is up, there might be. I've only ever used it as, it was the channel I used for just viewing, you know what I mean? It was like me as a YouTube user. Whereas this channel, the Bill Max Oxpax channel, and then I have also 3 Monks in a Tub, which is a music channel. Although, you know, I don't have anywhere near as many people who watch or listen to that as listen to this one. Which is, you know, kind of odd for me in some ways because I've been a musician for years. I mean, I was never able to support myself by my musicianship, but nonetheless, it has been an extremely important part of my life. But truth be told, the videos that are up there aren't really all that great. You know, they were just sort of things that I put up because, hey, it's YouTube, it's fun. I mean, there are a few that I'm very proud of, but there's a bunch that, not so much. So I want to be, you know, maybe putting some more effort in there as well. But anyway, back to the William Poshman thing. I'm going to put vlogish stuff over on that channel. So all of the religion and politics type stuff will go over there, because I just don't want to have to worry about discussing those things in a way that is ASMR suitable. You know, it just seems, yeah, I would like to be able to, you know, if necessary, lose my temper, you know. And sometimes when you talk about religion and politics, it's necessary to lose one's temper. In any case, so that's going to be happening. Yeah, you know, I think that's about it for the business and things for now. Okay, so I guess I'll go on to this childhood memory that I kind of wanted to talk about because I thought it would make good subject matter for a whisper. And it's going to be short, but nonetheless, I think it's a nice thing. as we were going along, and again, this is a creek with big weird shaped rocks that were slippery and the like, you know. As we were going, at one point I just sort of stood up and then took off. I just started running. I mean, running. Not kind of, teetering along and gingerly, scampering along the tops of the rocks. I mean, flat out running. And I remember being in this sort of odd state of mind, and I was about, I think, 12 at the time. But I remember I was looking up the creek like a good 10, 12 steps ahead of where my feet actually were. I wasn't looking down at my feet at all. And I could kind